Israel's assault on Gaza enters its third week with no let-up in sight. Now from the sky, a chilling warning. Israel drops new leaflets telling residents its offensive is about to move to the next phase. The reports the leaflets say the new operation will target tunnels and weapon storage sites. Food and fuel run short. The UN says it plans to resume aid shipments, while the two-week death toll rises to at least 800. Hamas answers with renewed rocket fire. Several Israeli civilians are wounded in the latest barrage. And after meeting with Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas calls on Israel and Hamas to accept a ceasefire. Well, certainly there is no ceasefire. For the latest, let's go to Ben Wiedemann. He joins us from Israel-Gaza border. Ben, what is the situation from your vantage point?
Yes, Asia, the situation, at least in the northern end of Gaza, where we're looking over, of course we can't go in at the moment because of Israeli restrictions, it's fairly quiet. We did hear some blasts earlier in the evening, but it does appear that most of the focus of the Israeli military action, at least today, Saturday, is in the south near the Egyptian border. You mentioned the leaflets that were dropped on the town of Rafah, which is on the border, warning people to leave their homes if they live near that area. The Israeli army focusing, of course, on the network of tunnels between Gaza and Egypt. And, of course, those tunnels have been used to smuggle weaponry, but by and large, certainly within the last year, the focus of the tunnels has really been on simple trade. It's in fact been a very booming business over the last year, bringing in all sorts of goods that simply aren't available through the usual crossings from Israel into Gaza. Now the expectation is that Israel is gearing up for the third phase of its offensive against Gaza. The first phase, of course, was the air war. Then last Saturday, ground troops went in. They've occupied most of these sort of rural areas around the cities, towns, villages, and refugee camps. The third phase would involve actually going into those towns, camps, villages, and refugee camps, and the expectation is that Israeli military casualties will be higher, and of course much higher will be the civilian casualties on the Palestinian side. We know that more than 825 Palestinians have been killed since this offensive began, more than 3,200 wounded. Asiye?
Ben, I know journalists are not allowed inside Gaza, so for you, it may be hard to assess the actual situation precisely on the ground. But when Israel drops these leaflets warning Gazans to evacuate their homes, where exactly are they supposed to go?
That's a very good question, one we've been asking for quite some time. Many of the people will go, for instance, to UN schools. They hope, they believe that the UN institutions are safer than their homes or those areas that might be near the areas of hostilities. But we've seen on more than one occasion that the Israeli forces have either struck schools or struck very near. In fact, in the Jabalia refugee camp, which isn't far from where I'm standing, last week, there was a strike on a very near a school in which more than 40 people were killed. So the people of Gaza are in a serious dilemma. They're being told to leave their homes, but there's really nowhere to go in Gaza where you can have any semblance of assurance that you're going to be safe. And of course, because of the bombing on the border between Egypt and Gaza, and because of the Egyptian government's policy of not opening that border, there's nowhere to go. They cannot flee the area of hostilities.
And on top of that, they may not be getting the aid they need. Has UN resumed its truck deliveries to Gaza, which were suspended after one of their workers was killed?
Well, the UN has resumed its activities in Gaza. It does have warehouses with a dwindling supply of food for the more than 800,000 of Gaza's 1.5 million residents who are wholly dependent on UN aid. Now, today, Israel did institute once more this 3-hour lull from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. in which they lessened the level of their military activity to allow Gazans to go out and get food, go to the hospital, bury the dead, and so forth. But today, unlike yesterday, no trucks were allowed to pass from Israel into Gaza, so they haven't been resupplied. And obviously, the level, even when they are being resupplied, the number of trucks going into Gaza is much lower. Yesterday, 70 trucks went into Gaza. The day before, 50 trucks went into Gaza. Under normal conditions, 500 trucks should be going in. So they're barely scraping by at the moment, and the UN is very worried that at some point, because of the hostilities, because of the difficulty of bringing trucks across the border from Israel, that their supplies are simply going to run out.
Thank you very much.